Why is succession planning important to an organization? By the end of this video, you're going to ensure that the business you built becomes a valuable gift to the next generation rather than a burden that they don't ever want. What if I told you that the gift of your business that you have set and ready for your kids is actually more of a prison sentence in their eyes? Here's kind of a terrifying statistic. 80% of the businesses that go up for sale, they never sell. Why? Because they're not ready. So how do we ensure something different happens with this asset that you're building? One thing we've got to remember about organizations is they're actually organisms, probably a better term for it. It's kind of like a human life. They're living, they're breathing, it makes sense, they're filled with people. They're dynamic, they're moving. An organization is never just static and still. There's always motion with it. And so as we're building these organizations, too many times we just allow it to build within the closet of our mind rather than to get these things out so that we can set up for a successful transition and succession. In working with business owners just like you for more than a decade, we have got story upon story that quite frankly is too unfortunate. And that is moms and dads have worked an entire lifetime funding a lifestyle for themselves or their kids. And then when they get to a time where they need to do something different, they need to transition, they need to exit, they need to sell, either there's nothing to sell and they just close up shop, which is so sad, or there is something to sell, but the value of that sell is way less than what they thought. Why? It's because the value of the asset is locked away in their heads or somewhere where other people can't grab it. When we're thinking about organizational life, organizations are dependent on fuel, and the fuel has to come from people and process. And the people and process have to be led with clarity of purpose, and that is vision, mission, values. When any of those elements are not captured outside of the mind of the person who owns the business, then the value of the business goes down, and quite frankly, the burden of the business for everybody else starts to escalate. It doesn't matter what stage of your organization you're in, succession planning needs to be on the mind of the owner. In fact, the Exit Planning Institute often recommends that a 7 to 10 year window. That's how far out you need to be thinking about transitioning succession. Well, I'm only in my 20s or 30s or 40s. Yeah, start thinking about that now. Because here's what we found. If you start planning for succession and transition, and all of a sudden your business can run and grow with or without you, you know what we found? Is a lot of owners never want to transition because it's way more fun to run a sellable business. The truth is only about 20% of the businesses that go on the market actually transition properly. Is it because of the market? Is it because of all of these other outside conditions? No. The majority of the reason, in fact 80% of the reason, is you, the owner. You're not ready. And one of the things that we as certified exit planning advisors evaluate business owners on is the personal readiness of the business owner themselves to be able to transition. And if you don't have a personal readiness plan, if you don't have a business readiness plan, then you are not in a position to transition. So this is why succession is so critical, because it forces the planning process so that you've got clarity so that your business can run and grow with or without you. The goal of planning is not the plan. A lot of times we get to the end of a planning sequence, whether it's strategic planning or vision planning or long-term planning, and we have the actual tangible plan, and we start high-fiving and celebrating the plan. The plan is just a plan. It's valuable because now the plan is outside. There's an opportunity for clarity. But if that plan does not motivate action, implementation, if it does not motivate with repetition, predictability, and meaning, this accountability, then the plan is of very little value to the people who just spent all the time and money creating it. So it is important to have a plan, but the plan must be in its proper spot, and that is to stoke accountability and action. And once that action and accountability start to go in place, it will breed the one thing that every employee wants regardless of generation. We're asked all the time, hey, how do we interact with millennials? How do we act with Gen Zers, Gen Yers, the alphas, the upcoming generations? How do we do all of that? Well, the reality is, it's with one word. Here's your silver bullet for the whole video: clarity. But there's a little side hint. Did you know that that's what the boomers and the builders want also? The Gen Xers, they all want clarity. And so if we can't offer clarity, and the clarity in the form of a plan, then we're not going to get that succession, that transition that we're looking for. So let me dive into a couple little elements I think are going to be helpful in terms of succession planning and transition planning to help you understand the value so that you can begin to lean into that action that creates clarity. No succession plan should exist without what we call a vision story. It's a detailed snapshot of the future of your business. Now, this is a great point to tell you about a video that I go into a deep dive around how to build a vision story, step by step in 7 different categories. So I want you to click on the link below in the description and get a piece of paper and a timer and get ready to go deep dive and do some work around building this clarity for you and your business. I'm going to give you a quick overview right now. The vision story is broken down into 7 categories. That's the term or the date. How far out do you see that vision? Second is the family and freedom. What do you want your family and what do you want your personal freedom to look like at the term or conclusion of that term? The third is the financial section. What do you want the distribution of the profit to look like and what kind of revenue is that going to require to get there? That's your third section. Fourth is your product and your service. Fifth is your team. What does your team need to look like to generate that revenue? So what is the product and your service? Try to get good scope. Give me some details to what that product and service looks like. And once we get clear with the product, now we can really locate the client. Who is our ideal client and who is our non-ideal client? We need to get very, very detailed and granular with that. And then the final section of that vision story is your culture section. What do you want the culture to be? By the way, a little side note on culture is, that's not a business term, right? It's a biology term. We in business stole it from science. And remember the Petri dish back in 6th grade? You used to spit in it, watch it under a microscope, watch it swim around. Maybe it's just me, or maybe just the guys in my class. But what happens in that Petri dish is scientists culture things. And the way culture works is really simple. You put something in the Petri dish, an ingredient, a seed, and then you submit it to heat, light, moisture, water, time, and then as that happens, something grows out. Well, what grows out? Whatever you put in. That's the way culture works. And so if you want a culture that doesn't feel like this, cross your fingers, beanbag chairs, ping pong tables, all of that kind of stuff, then what we need to do is intentionally build culture. Think of it like whiskey. If you put a vat of mash together in a bucket, you light it on fire underneath and it starts to distill, what comes out? It tastes just like what you put in. And that's how we want culture to build. And so that vision story will help get the seeds of those cultures so you start becoming intentional. So then you understand your ideal, non-ideal client, the product and service you offer with the team that's going to deliver it, and the financials it will generate for your family and freedom in that period of time. When you start to have this clarity of vision, you are now in a position of succession planning. Do you see what I did right there? That was pretty good, huh? Succession planning. That's where we want to go with this. There's one other really 5-minute task that you can do I think is super easy. If you get a scratch sheet of paper and go marketing, sales, ops, and admin across the top, set a 5-minute timer and start to do a brain dump of every process. There should be 10s, 20s, 50s, and hundreds eventually of all the process. Think about marketing. It's our website update process, our social media channel process, all of these things. Think about sales. It's our sales script, our estimating process, our bid follow-up. Operations, this is how we job site cleanup or job start, pass off, all of these processes that it takes to run a business. Well, most of that right now is in the heads of you and maybe a few other people. In order to properly transition a business, we got to get that out to where others can get it. But not only that, we're proactively training on it. That's the real value with repetition, predictability, and meaning. Here's why succession planning and clarity is so key for your business. Remember what I said up front in the video? Do you want to leave a gift as a legacy, or do you want to leave a burden that people don't want, but they're too afraid to tell you because they're your family or your friends? The reality is when you go through the hard work of doing this now, you are ultimately showing care, compassion, love, kindness, generosity, and all of these things when we create clarity around this, because now everybody around us knows what to expect. But when we don't do succession planning properly, starting with clarity, then what we're doing is we're just leaving people to flounder. And they're just going to do the next best thing. And they're going to be responding to the latest, loudest voice. And we don't want to do that. We want to respond to clarity. Hey, we're going this direction over here. So what direction are you going? Make sure you take time to click on that link in that video that I told you about earlier. That is a deep dive. It is a powerful few minutes for you to walk through and actually build your vision story. My name is Scott Beebe. We work with business owners, 3 to 100 employees, to build their purpose, people, process, and profit. Why? So that you can be liberated from chaos and make time for what matters most.